Welcome back to Real Talk, the show where we sit down with real investors, doing real deals, and uncover what's actually happening in today's market. Today, I'm joined by Ross Dillon, an investor who's doing deals nationwide, currently targeting Ohio market. He specializes in wholesaling, innovation, and works heavily in the business credit space, helping investors fund and scale their operations. He also coaches investors and wholesalers on the sales and deal execution side too. Ross, for the people who do not know you yet, can you give us a quick intro about who you are, where you operate, and main question, how exactly did you get into the real estate space?
That's an excellent question. For everybody who doesn't know me, my name is Ross Dillon, also known as Real Estate Ross on Instagram. Essentially, what got me into real estate was, it started off with coming from a poor family. That's what it came down to. I was always intrigued by the wealthy. They had so much free time. They could freaking golf during the day. They could spend time with their family. And they just had these businesses cranking cash out or assets in the background. So essentially, I used to be in law enforcement, and I used to work a hell of a lot of overtime, like 80, 90-hour weeks. And we would work construction jobs. So I would have my headphones in because there was a lot of downtime. And essentially, I started listening to all these podcasts on personal development, and real estate just kept getting brought up over and over and over. And I'm like, all right, clearly this is a sign. Let's deep dive this a little bit more. And this was back when kind of BiggerPockets was exploding, like 2016, 17. And I went down that rabbit hole, started kind of checking out what investment properties would be like and small multifamily, things like that. And then I stumbled over a thing called real estate wholesaling. And I'm like, okay, so you can get into real estate with like little to no money down, and then you can cherry pick the best deals because you're direct to seller. And I was like, okay, let's see what's up with this. So I continued listening to like Wholesaling Inc. podcast. And then literally the day before they shut down the world, and I remember it, at least in New Jersey where I was living at the time, it was March 16th, during the pandemic in 2020. I purchased Brent Daniels' course, TTP, and it was just a cold calling course. But it gave you the structure of how to build a 7-figure wholesaling operation. So essentially from there, I started cold calling, getting into all the softwares and the systems, pulling lists, and I started doing that before going to work every single day for at least 3 to 4 hours. Because I was only doing this part-time and my other job was kind of consuming me, it was a little bit of a journey to get that first deal. So it took 19 months. And this is in New Jersey where people are a little bit more sophisticated. But after the 19 months, I put my first deal under contract, and it was a $40,000 wholesale deal. And that was more than I'd make in an entire year overtime, directing traffic in the snow, the blistering sun, the rain, and everything in between. And I was like, okay, this is golden. Let's jump on this. And then eventually went full-time in 2023, the beginning stages, and the rest is history.
It seems like
Yes,
for
sir.
you, like your first deal was like a 40K deal.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but then again, there is a lot of misconception, right? So obviously, a lot of people, a lot of the youngsters, they try to get into wholesaling thinking it might be something like a quick get-rich-quick scheme, but obviously that's not the case. Can you maybe highlight a little bit more about the challenging parts of wholesaling, things which a lot of new investors overlook?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're on Instagram and you're seeing people with like private jets and Lamborghinis, likely they made income from a different source, and it took a long time. Or if they did do wholesaling, maybe they're like renting things out. So don't go on Instagram. Don't look at that life. You said the magic words as far as the fast track or the cheat code or the, this overnight success. First off, that doesn't exist. There was something that resonated with me, and it's called a dedicate. What is a dedicate? A dedicate is being dedicated to one thing for an entire decade. Like people see celebrities jump out of the woodwork, or people become athletes, or investors come out of the woodwork. And it's typically almost 10 years in the making in the background of doing the same consistent grunt work every single day and refusing to quit. And that right there is the, cheat code or the fast track that everybody thinks. But wholesaling, the way I look at it is, if it's not for the faint of heart. So if you're offended easily, don't do it. If you don't have any discipline or structure, don't do it. But if you want to change your life, and you could apply these tactics to any other business as well, do wholesaling. Because what you'll learn is you're dealing with people in the worst situations of their entire life. And they are essentially taking out all of their anger, all of their sadness, any emotion that you could possibly think of, you will be receiving on the other end of that line. And if you can convince somebody or guide them that you're the perfect solution, and you can close them over the phone through e-signature on a same call to sell the biggest asset of their entire life, everything else becomes easy. Put it that way. Everything else becomes easy.
I think that's one of the best ways to actually put it, because one of the things which I notice is nowadays we got like a lot of young guys coming in, even especially into closer control, to, hey man, I just want to get into wholesaling. I want to like start making what you call like big bucks. And then majority of the time we never let them use the system, because we're like, hey, how many deals have you started doing? They're like 0. We're like, bro, gets maybe 1 or 2 deals locked down, and then once you have like enough leads coming into your system, then yes, you would be ready for the system. But I would not say you're not ready for the system if it's just going to be your first deal, if you have not even done a deal yet. And we push a lot of customers like that aside, because we don't want to get someone in on the false hopes that, you know what, this is just going to work out immediately, because it's like adding on cost after cost, right? The CRM costs this much. A lot of the new guys, if they do not have their budget locked down, they spend a ton of money in marketing just on the hopes that some deals would end up giving them money. And then they end up spending a huge bucks on cold calling services. So yeah, I think that's like a best way to put it, Ross. So I know you've been working on both wholesaling and novations, right? So how has the role of wholesaling changed in today's market compared to when you started back during the pandemic era?
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many changes. That's actually a tough question, because it changes so frequently now with all the regulations that you have to be willing to pivot and make that decision to pivot immediately. Because once you find out about it, you're already late to the game. So the smart ones, they have their ear to the ground. And I would say, I mean, obviously AI is coming in. So AI is huge. And with closer control, just like the AI conversational bot is ridiculous. I used to literally tap a space button to send text messages in Smarter Contacts back in the day when this first came out, and other, SMS platforms. And every text that came in, you would have to type out something and have a conversation. It was literally a living nightmare. Since then, with the AI, it's absolutely easier, because if you're not talking to a homeowner on the acquisition side of the business, or talking to a buyer on the disposition side, that is not your highest and best use of time. That's what it comes down to. Anything else admin that comes into play, it is a non-income or low-income generating activity. I call it a non-income, because you're not closing deals or selling deals. So the AI has been huge. Regulations have come across. You've seen a lot of states like Oklahoma, Oregon, then it went to South Carolina, Illinois, you've got to be licensed. Like a lot of states, especially with these realtors that absolutely despise wholesalers, they're coming down. They're coming down on us. So when they come down on us as entrepreneurs, we need to pivot and adapt instead of quitting. So if they're like, wholesaling is illegal, great, double close on the deal, right? Double close, lock it up lower, and double close on it and pay the transactional funding and this, that. There's always a way to get it done. So the fear that they instill, honestly, just be a contrarian. Like instead of running away from it, sometimes all the competition leaves the area. They scatter like cockroaches, and you can go in and up your marketing, and you're going to close way more deals because everybody's, they're scared of their own shadow, right? So with the regulations, I always recommend just pay attention to your market that you're in. And if you're nationwide, honestly, if you don't have a massive team, it is going to be you are going to be going through the trenches every single day because you're relearning so much, building new buyers lists, learning, getting the title company, learning the state regulations, and they all differ. So nationwide's very tough if you have a small team. But if you're market specific, learn the state, learn the crap out of it, and get good at it, and make those relationships and build out a power team so you can dominate.
And are you how many members do you have in your team as of right now?
Super small team. We got AI. That's one member. Now I got AI, and I work with two great closers out of California. It's just the three of us. I handle basically operations and dispo, and then these guys are closing the deals because the older you get and the longer you're in wholesaling, you get a little burnout from these sellers, and acquisitions just wasn't my cup of tea after a while.
And you spoke about AI, right? So obviously, Closer Control has the AI conversation bot which directly interacts with these sellers. But obviously, a lot of the deals are still won or lost in conversations, right? The way you talk, the way you interact. Can you maybe give us a little bit more insight on that? Is AI actually changing the game, or would you say you still need a little bit of human intervention to get those sort of things done?
Yes and yes. So AI is absolutely changing the game. But AI is garbage in, garbage out. So if it's being trained a certain way, and you guys are pretty dialed in over at Closer Control, if it's being trained a certain way, you're going to get, honestly, 80% success rate and probably maybe even a little more. And all you do is you constantly find what's going wrong and then literally retrain it on those areas of weakness. So you need to constantly monitor this thing like a baby. Like if you do not treat this like a newborn, AI is not going to be the thing for you. You got to, because people are adapting just like AI is adapting. So people are getting smarter on picking up if it's AI. So it's got to sound conversational, and it's got to ask the right questions and have some human emotion and that human touch, which is very difficult. And I don't think we're getting there, but we're not there yet. There's still a lot of work to be done. And sometimes if you have a certain seller profile, just say a driver personality, someone that's red, they are right to the point, one-word responses, and if you over-communicate, you lose them. What I love about Closer Control is you can actually click 2 different likely personality profiles out of the 4. You have a driver personality, amiable, you have an expressive, and then you have an analytical. So you can click 2 of the 4, and it will now force itself to communicate where the odds are likely that type of seller profile, and it just makes your life and the seller's life a hell of a lot easier. So I think it's awesome, but you do need to babysit. I'm not saying you have to hover over it all day, but definitely jump in. If things are going south, retrain, and you're going to be good.
I think that's one of the things about AI, right? You have to constantly train your model almost, I think, every 2 weeks, because obviously it's all about prompting nowadays. So there might be certain prompts, it might be 80% working right now. And then 2 weeks later, you might have noticed 1-2 stuff which you probably would have missed out based on the client conversation interaction. So maybe some things which our clients probably would have brought up. Then we see, okay, you know what, this is the 2 things, areas which AI is not covering, right? And then we got to re-prompt it again and again get it to be restructured. So I know you have basically been mastering the wholesaling side. So one of the things that I want to know is, how do you stay confident in conversations? Let's say when a seller says, hey, another investor has offered me more. Do you try some strategies to win the deal back, or you just let it go?
I mean, when they say, because it's becoming commoditized, right? So typically what I say to them is, do you want the best offer or do you want the one that's actually going to end up in your bank account? Because there's a lot of people in this industry that will give offers that are way too high just to put them under contract. And then what they'll do is they'll beat them down on price, or 2 days before closing, they're going to do like, oh, I need a $20,000 reduction. People like this are the ones that destroy our reputation and our name in this industry. So if you have integrity and you're doing the right thing for this person and getting them out of their situation, treat these people like you would your mother. Do the right thing even when nobody's looking, and stop chasing the money. When you're doing the right thing and doing good and adding value to these people's lives, the money is just a byproduct of you serving them at a very high level. And that's where there's a big disconnect in this industry. So if you are going to be doing joint venture deals or asking people for advice or getting coaches and mentors, make sure they're doing the right thing. So another thing to think about is people buy you. So there have been so many deals that I've closed where they've never even asked my company name. They were just like, I'm happy you answered all the questions I have. And I'm really excited to kind of go to the next chapter of my life. And I thank you so much for hearing me out. That's like a common theme I get. And it's literally, they do 80% of the talking and you do 20%. So always use the 80-20 principle. That applies to literally everything in life. So if they're talking 80% of the time and you're talking 20, the 20% you are talking, you're asking great questions. The best closers ask the best questions. That's all it comes down to. People like doing business with people who they like. People always think it's who they know, like, and trust. Yeah, but it's actually who they like. Do I actually like this person? You essentially have to pass the beer and barbecue test. Would they go out to a bar and have a beer with you, or would I take them to like a family barbecue? If they like kind of hanging out with you on the phone and you can be authentic, they're going with you, even if your price that you deliver is freaking $20,000 or $30,000 below what they're asking. And it's just get them to like you, hear out their story, and be very solution oriented. Find the solution in live time as you're talking to them. And when you talk with an authority, confidence, certainty, and you are likable, and you send over that contract on the phone, by the way, never use the word contract. When you send over that agreement over the phone, you're going to lock them up, and they are going to literally ignore the other investors because they're so infatuated with you as a person.
So, Ross, you take a lot of time basically building that trust with the seller, right? Before like any deal goes, right? I think that makes a lot of things play according to your way.
Absolutely. There is a direct correlation with talk time and signed contracts. There are a lot of people in this industry that kind of rush through it and they can get the signed contracts. But if you're giving them a transactional experience, I can guarantee you that they're signing 10 or 15 other contracts too, and it's going to be a complete shit show, essentially. Depending on their personality profile, especially drivers, Reds, they will talk very little. They want you to get to the point, send over the contract, and then they'll sign without even reading it. But then if someone else gives them an offer that's $5,000 more, another investor, they're going to do the same thing with them. So you need to find a way to find alignment with that person and dig deep. You essentially have to be a professional excavator, meaning dig deep all the way to the center of the earth. Because the surface, the dirt, that's not where the true root cause of their problem is. Those are just the symptoms. When you ask question after question after question and get them from a logical down to an emotional state, that's where the answer lies, and that's where they're going to make their decision. Every decision you will ever make in your life is based off emotions and then justified afterwards with logic. And this even goes for our analytical profile people. So even when I present all the facts and figures and numbers and what the cost analysis would be and how much you would be losing by not making the decision, I'm going to get an analytical into an emotional state. I'll say, how much longer can you go losing this much money every single month? And it's going to resonate with them. Even though it's numbers based, that decision they will finally make is going to be emotional. and I'm going to future pace them and talk about what their life will be like without this pain they're going through at this moment.
Nice. I think that gives us like, I think, a proper structure as well as like a proper way on how exactly we can build the relationship. Then I think having this relationship can also give you opportunities to close more deals with the same seller later on down the future too, right? So they'll always, it's like building that long-term relationship and trust so that you have a client which is going to keep giving you deals down the road. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's like, I've noticed like once you're on the phone with people for more than 30 or 45 minutes, there is a very high probability they're going to sign that contract because their guard goes down. Now they're getting to know you. They're like, all right, all the defense mechanisms kind of go down, and now you're just having a conversation person to person. But don't get too into the friend zone. You still got to go for the close, and you have to go for the ask, right? But there is a method to this madness for sure.
Amazing. And I also know that you mentioned you're deep in the business credit world. So how would you say having access to capital is going to be such a huge advantage for wholesale investors? Like, could you elaborate on that side?
Great question. So I am in the process of, I'm still studying myself, learning every day. I'm studying sales, I'm studying systems and processes, right? The CRM, closer control in there, and then business credit. So I'm a lifelong student in everything I do. But there are three things that are super important for business owners. And these will either make or break your business. It is people, that is your team and culture. It is systems and processes to include AI. And finally, where most business owners fail, access to capital. If you have all three of these, you're going to thrive. If any one of these pieces is missing, especially the capital, you will fail. You're going to close shop. Or you're going to be constantly racking up credit cards, closing a deal, paying the cards down, racking up credit cards, and it's just going to be this hamster wheel. They call it the wholesaling hamster wheel. So you don't want to be on that. You want to leverage capital. And if you can have access to anywhere from $100,000 to $250,000 in 0% business interest credit cards, think about what that would do to your business. It would explode it. Now you can finally scale. You can do the marketing you were always maybe in fear of doing, even though it's an investment. It's not marketing, it's an investment that you're looking to get a return on ad spend. And you can then figure out what you hate in the business, right? Like I hate acquisitions. Like I just don't like it. It is what it is. But I can coach people doing it, and then I can do what I like in the business, and I can hire out other people who absolutely love doing what I hate. So find out what you hate, hire that out, and then do more of what you love.
Amazingly put. And one other part and one of the key part I know which we have missed out is you also coach investors and wholesalers too, right? And I know there's something which you always tell your students that they don't want to hear it at first, but they really need to. What would you say is that one thing?
The phone doesn't weigh 1,000 pounds. Pick it up. Also, the people on the other end of the line, they have no idea who you are. They have no idea what you can offer them. And you got to treat every lead like it's the last lead you've ever had. Mm-hmm. So don't prejudge the leads. Get on the phone, because every lead in your CRM is not just a name and an address. There is a story behind it. If you don't know the story with every one of these leads, whether that's disqualifying them or giving them an offer or following up, you're going to lose this game. Pick up the 1,000-pound phone, which is not 1,000 pounds. You literally click a button. It's 2026. And then get your ego out of it. Put your ego aside. If they say yes, great. If they tell us to fuck off, great. Each one of these is that much closer to a signed contract. So all you got to do is a sifting process. We're sifting through dirt to find gold. And eventually you get desensitized. So every no is just that much closer to a yes. It is inevitable. If you keep pushing forward, it's almost like the universe's test. When the universe sees that you keep pushing through all those no's, you get rewarded with a yes. So never ever give up. and also put your ego aside.
Got it. And what would you say would matter more to like a new investor? Like, is it like better marketing or is it better conversations?
I wouldn't even start marketing until you start getting your sales process locked in. You need some sort of a process. You can use scripts or you can use a sales framework or both. I like doing the script first and then you graduate into the sales framework and then go from there. I probably spent upwards of $80,000 in marketing and knew nothing about sales. That was a problem. As soon as I got the sales dialed in, then I opened up the floodgates of marketing, but you have to ensure you have a freaking CRM that has some sort of amazing follow-up process, or AI, kind of like Closer Control does, because 80% of your deals are going to be in the follow-up. The fortune is in the follow-up. And the other ones, it's speed to lead. When a lead comes in, if you don't call it in the first 30 seconds, they're going to sign with someone else, right? So speed to lead. You have an insane advantage with the speed to lead and also one call close. Do the one call close. Don't say I'm going to call you back. Put them on hold. And if you have anybody else you can run numbers with, that helps out. But get good at comping, underwriting, and doing all this while you're on the phone or putting them on hold, and do everything. Go for the close on the first call. As soon as you give them time and they come down from that emotional state, odds are they're not going to sign with you, or they're going to sign with someone else who brought them into the emotional state that basically has the balls to go for the close on that first call.
Well, Ross, I think that's an amazing advice and a lot of amazing insights we got to learn from you during this entire podcast. So for a lot of the listeners, or let's say viewers who want to maybe get into wholesaling or novations today, what would you say is the one piece of advice you can give them?
You got to do some soul searching first. If you don't have a very strong reason for why you're doing this and you don't have a vision, don't even start it. Because everybody else is going to bulldoze you that has a bigger why, that's going to do the work when they're not in the mood to do it. And 90% of the time or more, you're not in the mood to do it. So you better have a very strong, unbelievable why that gets you so freaking excited that when you get out of bed, you're ready to take on the world. So just ensure you have a very strong why, you have a very strong vision, and do not stop, because the gold is on the other side of the rainbow, and there are a lot of struggles before you get to the goal.
You got to go through all the rough and tough before you actually get to see the money or cash through that.
Yes, sir.
Ross, I think this has been an amazing session. So before we actually end our podcast, we do something called a fireside chat where we ask you quick questions. You don't have to go too much into depth. So the first thing which comes to your mind, just tell it to me. That's it. Short answers, not thinking too hard. Let me know when you're ready, and we just go for 5 questions.
Never a better time than now. Let's get after it.
First question. Craziest thing a seller has ever said to you?
You guys need to meet me at the bank with a bag of cash. I'm going to quit claim this over to you, and I need this done by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And also, I'm going to be leaving my dogs at the property, and they're Rottweilers, so you guys are going to have to figure out that. Maybe you'll have to call the SWAT team and figure that out, but you have to handle the dogs. I don't want the dogs either. So meet me at the bank. I need a bag of cash. I'll quit claim it to you, and we need this done in a few hours.
Okay. I know this is a fireside chat, so I'm not going to go deeper into the story. Maybe we can save it for another day. Worst excuse you hear for not making offers?
Worst excuse I hear for not making offers. It's typically you're going off your own emotions and what they're assuming. So like I just felt that they weren't ready to move forward. I sensed a little hesitancy. So it seemed like they weren't ready. So I just didn't even want to get into it. And I'll hear that. And I'm like, so you're assuming, or you can actually read other people's minds and brains. Is that kind of what you're telling me? So never assume, because as the saying goes, you make an ass out of you and me. You never know what's going on in their mind. And also they might be too scared or have too much pride to ask you for help. So without you asking them what they want and need and desire, the conversation goes stale. It goes nowhere. Always ask for the close. Always give the offer. The offer will reveal the motivation. Whether there's a lot of it, you'll notice they'll come way down on price. And if there's a little bit of it or none, they're going to stand their ground and you can disqualify them and follow up at a later date. But the offer reveals the motivation or lack thereof. Always give the offer.
Most overrated advice in real estate right now.
If you pay for my $10,000 course, I'll have you making $100,000 a month in 2 months. So just follow my blueprint and you're good. Right? That's why I got this. That's why I got this rented out Lamborghini. If you're going to be studying under someone, you're going to want a coach that doesn't sugarcoat shit. If they sugarcoat it, you're not going to succeed. That would be like having a friend that basically allowed you to do all these crazy hard drugs and they saw your life going down the gutter and they didn't say anything to you. So you need a coach that not only empowers you and lifts you up, but they need to call you out on all the shit you're doing wrong so you can make those tweaks. If you're not coachable, every business you enter, you will get swallowed. So what it comes down to is just putting your ego aside, being coachable, and then going all in. Not dipping your toe in the pool and testing the temperature of the water, literally doing a freaking cannonball into the deep end and going all in and listening to people that are already at where you want to be.
And last question before we end this podcast. A lot of people, they say the market is dead. What's your first thought?
The market's dead. Sounds like another excuse. So it sounds like another excuse. What market? What specific market? Okay? Everything is like a heartbeat. If you ever read like a EKG, it's like the heartbeat's going up and down and it's all these zigzags. That market might stink. That state might stink. So then jump ship and go somewhere else. There's an app called Reventure that I use that's got real-time data of all the markets that are going up and all the markets that are going down. So when you're in a market that's going way down and you're seeing the writing on the wall, tweak your marketing. This is a remote business that can be done from a laptop anywhere in the world. Tweak the marketing to the markets that there are more sales, there are more investment activity. Anytime I hear the market's dead, that means you're dead. You're not picking up the phone and you're not doing the work. Because if you do the work, you're going to sell deals and you're going to make a boatload of money doing it. When everybody else is saying, oh, the market's good, right? Let them think that way. Exactly. More deals for you.
Well, Ross, appreciate you jumping on and sharing your insights. Obviously, guys, if you're watching and you want more conversation about real estate industry and the sales side of the deals, do let us know who you want next on the podcast, and we'll see you on the next episode of Real Talk. Once again, Ross Dillon, thank you so much for hopping on the call, sharing us a lot of knowledge and gold with the audience. We're truly grateful to have you over here. Guys, tune in next week where we're going to be coming up with new guests, new episodes, new stories. With then, see you guys.